Some friendships don't end because of betrayal. There's no fight, nobody cheats anybody, nobody suddenly became a terrible person. And honestly, this video isn't really about fake friends or dramatic heartbreak. It's about something quieter than that. The strange experience of slowly losing touch with people you genuinely thought would stay in your life forever. I think almost everyone reaches a point where they realize that a large part of friendship is tied to timing. Work, living in the same area, seeing each other every day without the need to plan it. And when those things disappear, sometimes the friendship also disappears. Not immediately. That's the weird part. At first, everything still feels normal. You still send messages. You still react to each other's posts. And you still say things like, hey, we should catch up sometime. Maybe you even mean it. Then life slowly becomes a bit less shared. You stop knowing the small details about each other. You don't know what's been stressing the other person lately. You don't know how they're spending most of their time. You don't know what kind of person they're becoming. They stop knowing those things about you too. The distance builds up gradually, and sometimes you don't notice it until much later. Sometimes you notice it in the middle of a conversation, sitting across from someone you used to talk to all the time, and suddenly the rhythm feels different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. I think people underestimate how much friendships are connected to the version of yourself at the time. There are friends connected to specific phases of your life. The version of you as a teenager, the version of you in university, your first job, a difficult year. And when your life changes, your circumstances change. The connection also changes. No one failed anything. It's just that those memories you thought were fixed, they were tied to versions of people who kept moving internally even when nobody noticed. There's also this strange pressure people feel to explain drifting apart, like someone must be responsible for it, as if every relationship needs a villain. But honestly, Some people just slowly become less present in each other's lives. That's it. One person gets busy, the other builds a different routine, then connections become slower. Plans happen less often, and eventually you realize you haven't spoken properly in months, and then somehow it becomes years. What makes it even more emotional is that sometimes you still care about them. You see something that reminds you of them, and your first instinct is still to send a message. You hear a joke they would have loved. You pass by a place you used to go together. A random memory comes up for no reason at all. And for a second, the friendship still feels close in your mind. But then reality catches up again. I think one of the hardest parts is realizing that missing someone doesn't always mean you want the relationship back exactly as it was. Sometimes you miss the time, the feeling of life during that period, who you were around them, how effortless things felt before adulthood became so scheduled and fragmented. You're not necessarily trying to recreate a friendship. You're grieving a version of life that no longer exists in the same form. And honestly, adulthood changes the structure of friendship more than people expect. When you're younger, friendship happens automatically. You see each other constantly. You share the same routines, environments, and problems. Later on, friendship becomes something that requires coordination. Everybody's tired. Everybody is working. People relocate. People get into relationships. They become parents. Priorities change. And now, maintaining closeness starts requiring effort. I've also noticed that sometimes people outgrow a dynamic even if they still care about each other as people. That can be difficult to admit because it sounds harsher than it really is. But sometimes two people were compatible during one stage of life and less compatible later. Humor changes, values, energy, interests, they all change. One person becomes quieter, the other may stay the same. Or it flips. And eventually, conversations start feeling more nostalgic than natural. What's strange is that some friendships never get an ending. There's no final conversation, no official goodbye, just less communication until the relationship quietly slips into memory. And that's why old relationships can stay emotionally unresolved for years. Because technically, nothing happened. Sometimes people from your past cross your mind in completely random moments. You don't want anything from them, but certain people become attached to entire eras of your life. You don't only remember them, you remember who you were when they were around. And maybe that's why old relationships can feel surprisingly emotional, even long after they faded. I also think social media created this strange illusion that nobody really disappears from our lives anymore. Years ago, people faded out more naturally. Now anyone exists in a distant background permanently. You don't talk for years, but you still know what they posted last week. So some friendships feel both gone and strangely present at the same time. And honestly, I don't think the human brain fully knows what to do with that. The difficult thing about growing older is realizing that not every meaningful relationship is permanent. Some people are important because of the period they shared with you, not because they were meant to stay forever. That doesn't make the friendship fake. It doesn't erase what it meant at the time. Some friendships last decades, others last 2 years, and still they shape you permanently. A person can become a part of your memory, your humor, your personality, even if you barely speak anymore. And maybe part of adulthood is learning how to appreciate relationships without forcing them to remain the same. Not every connection survives every version of life. Sometimes people drift apart, gently, sometimes suddenly, sometimes without either person wanting it to happen. And even though that's sad sometimes, it's also very normal. I think a lot of people needed to hear that. I'll see you in the next Quiet Echoes.